Greetings ladies and gents, welcome back to the Craft Hammer. I'm your host Stefan, and in today's video we are continuing our mini tutorials for you, the new beginner who just needs a bit of help with some of the basics for the hobby. In today's video we're going to be talking about brushes. What exactly do you need to get, which ones are used for what, and how much money should you be spending on getting some brushes. As you can see in front of us, I do have a few models here. Hopefully the paint scheme is able to come across nicely. I'm not a huge artist, I don't enter competitions, but I do think I do a decent enough job when it comes to painting, so I think I've learned a few things about applying some paint on models, and of course what are some decent brushes that you might need to get a decent enough job. Nothing too fancy, it's not going to win you any competitions. It is going to look fairly nice on the battlefield when you're having a few games with some friends, or when you're attending some tournaments and you want to have a nice painted army. When it comes to brushes, we do have a wide variety of different options, and of course there's a few different kind of shapes, different sizes, depending on what exactly you intend to do. What we're going to do is give hopefully a decent enough introduction for brushes when it comes to beginning into the hobby. Of course, this can also be a bit personal depending on how you like to paint your models and also what it feels like, the actual brushes in your hand. But hopefully this will give you a nice little guide, and if you happen to have watched my previous mini tutorials, you might have actually seen a little brush in there that might give you a hint of what we're going to talk about. And speaking of which, don't forget to go and check out the playlist for all the tutorials that we've done so far. We probably won't be adding too many more going forward. We don't really have that many topics that we're going to be looking at, but make sure you check out our playlist. Don't forget to subscribe and like this video, really helps us out. Now, without waffling too much, let's get down and show you the paintbrushes that I use to get these models painted at this standard, and how you can also do this. So let's just slightly move them back a bit, make a bit of space, and then we're just gonna plop this right in front of you. That's right, I don't use anything fancy. I believe I got this roughly 5 years ago, this specific box. I believe when I first got it, it was around £40 for 144 little paintbrushes. The handle part is a circular plastic, and we get some golden Taklon brushes, I suppose, at the top. Nothing too fancy. Normally what I do is that these brushes last me about a few weeks of consistent painting, maybe even a few months depending on what exactly I'm doing, and then yeah, they get a bit damaged up. There's a bit of paint that starts to cake up in the core of the actual brush head, and then they're not really usable anymore. Like, the actual hairs start to bend a bit too much and they're no longer at a point. So then I just throw it out into the recycling bin, and that's pretty much it. We don't have any fancy brushes here. These are probably gonna outlast me in the hobby itself. Might even have a few left by the time, you know, future generations are doing the hobby. So to be honest, this is all I'm probably gonna be using for an extremely long time. Now, of course, this is for general painting, and then doing any sort of little details or highlights, I normally use this. We do have one extra thing, which is a makeup brush that I use for dry brushing itself, which is when you do a little scraping on top and you don't want to hit all the crevices, so you only hit the little top bits. I use an old makeup brush. The main reason I wanted to put this video out is far too often I see a lot of videos out there and a lot of posts on Facebook as well, and other groups that have the hobby in it, where people really recommend super expensive paintbrushes that need a lot of care. Ironically enough, even these expensive brushes, when they get delivered, some of them already have the brush heads broken somehow. So even those expensive ones that you've been buying and spent quite a lot of bit of money, they're already broken when you get them. So I'm hoping that this will help some new beginners, letting them know that in reality you don't need anything fancy. One of these will last you for a long time. The brushes themselves have decent enough points. You're able to get the details that you want. You're able to do edge highlights. Nothing is that complicated that you need such fine, precise paintbrushes that you might see some of the fancier ones. Honestly, for the average person, this is exactly what you need. You don't need the really expensive ones that you see very fancy artists use. To be honest, if you are an artist, then obviously you're going to go a different route, and there's no point in discussing this. But for the average person, I think that this little box will do you wonders, and it has done me pretty well over the years, and I've never really had any inclination or need to get one of the more expensive paintbrush sets that you can see. Another thing that I've also seen is when people get those very fancy paintbrushes, they don't actually paint any better, but they also don't paint any more. They want to really take care of those brushes. They're very scared to use them a lot of the times, and their model count when it comes to actually getting painted models onto the battlefield drastically goes down because they're so, I guess, worried and scared about damaging their very expensive paintbrushes, and some of them just keep them in the box and never actually use them. So I'm hoping that this video will help you, the new beginner. Make sure to know that you don't need to spend a lot of money on a very small set of paintbrushes. You can go to your hobby store, get one of these, get a nice little point, and it will do you fine for the majority of your work. Now, our next video will be about wet palettes, so do make sure to stick around for that one. Until then, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and like this video, really helps us out. And until next time, take care, folks.